joins the show. Colby, a good afternoon and welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. How are you doing?
What's going on, guys? It's a good day. It's a Saturday. There's lots of hockey games on. The Australian Open's going. I don't know if any of you guys are tennis fans, but plenty of sports to watch. BU got a big win last night. Your guy's boy Rutger McGroarty looked great for Michigan last night. What a prospect he is. So yeah, lots to get into, I'm sure. I know Rutger McGroarty since he's a little kid. I played for his father. And let me just tell you, that he's a hockey player. Yeah. Like, I don't think it would matter if the game was in the middle of the Arctic tundra or if it was in the middle of the desert somewhere, God knows where. That kid, once he straps up, he's coming. He is like going to punch you in the face. He's going to run you over, and then he's going to score a goal, and then he might take your girlfriend. Like, that's the kind of kid, the kind of hockey player he is. He's old school, right? So, I said on social media that's the future captain of the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, absolutely. I have no idea if he ends up there, but I mean, you watch the way he plays at Michigan. When he's going, he drags that entire team along. And there's other skilled players around him, but that's just who he is. That's his personality. He's a leader. He's a coach's kid. He eats, sleeps, breathes the game of hockey. And I'm not sure kids nowadays do that. I just don't. I think there's so much other shit going on. I sometimes wonder what the commitment level is for all these guys. I don't wonder with him, So I think the Canadian market will love that kid. Like Brady Tkachuk has become a beloved captain in Canada as an American player. Like Austin Matthews has become a beloved player in Canada as an American. Quinn Hughes. I mean, go down the list. And so, but I know, and I'm giving you a long answer, but I don't know if there's a way around this at this point, because we do know one thing about hockey, guys. It's a copycat league. Once someone does it, once a team does something, once a play, other guys go, if he did it, then I think I could do it too.
By the way, Colby, can you come on every single week and talk about Rutger McGroarty? Because I think Jets fans would absolutely love that.
Yeah, well, I see him play. I watch a lot of Michigan, and I watch a lot of college hockey. On the weekends, I kind of dial back the NHL on the weekend and really focus on college hockey. I love watching BU for obvious reasons. Very, very connected to the team, the coaching staff, and the program, but. Like last night, I was flipping back and forth between BU and Michigan, because Michigan State is an incredible rivalry. Michigan State has been the better team all season. Michigan really needed some wins this weekend against them to really get themselves back high up the pairwise to put themselves in a good spot here for the push. And they shit kicked them. And it started with a Rutger McGroarty goal and a bunch of points. I mean, he's a force.
Colby Cohen, our guest Saturday morning. This is the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. You can listen to Colby every morning, Monday to Friday, on Morning Cuppa Hockey, on dailyfaceoff.com and the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel.
Colby, I can tell you this. Jets fans have never been this excited to watch Michigan games since the 15-16 season, when they were watching Kyle Connor just absolutely destroy things with the CCM line. So
that was a great line, wasn't it?
Oh, man. I'm going to tell you, because I watched all those games because there was a lot of excitement when the Jets drafted Kyle Connor, and watching those games at Michigan. I mean, how he didn't win the Hobie Baker, I still don't understand, because he was, and I can't attest to watching a lot of college hockey, but I watched him and he was absolutely unbelievable.
Well, I can tell you this because I'm on the committee for the Hobie Baker. Yes, we vote, but there isn't a structure. Like, the Hobie Baker is, there's no quote unquote criteria. So it's really it's loose, right? Yeah. And it's a very diverse group of people, between hockey people, media people. It's kind of an interesting thing. This is my third year, and will actually be my final year on that committee. After doing it for a couple of years, it just was kind of, felt like it was time to not be a part of that anymore. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you, because I remember that season. I remember doing their NCAA tournament game against North Dakota that year. It was actually like maybe the first time I was ever in the booth was that NCAA tournament. I'd really never done TV before, and I kind of got thrown in. And I remember that line in the NCAA tournament. We were in the Cincinnati regional that year, and those guys were special players. So, you know, it's a good time if you're a Winnipeg Jet fan to watch the Michigan Wolverines. And don't be surprised with, you know, the way college hockey is now, you know, moving into this whole NIL where players are making money and this and that. Like, you know, more and more, I think we're going to start seeing a little bit more, you know, Canadian players go the NCAA route. I really do. I think the CHL, you know, has gotten so stringent, and they've got all those rules about guys going and playing in the American League too young. And, you know, like they need to figure that out, because I think there's a world where the CHL and the NCAA can all kind of coexist at one. But in my opinion, the pendulum is swinging a little bit into the NCAA's purview right now, because $50 a week or whatever these OHL kids make, or WHL or whatever. I know you guys have a WHL team, right?
Not anymore. They just moved.
They just moved.
Well,
okay,
I mean, we have the Brandon Wheat Kings in Manitoba, but yeah, the
Fair
Winnipeg,
enough, yeah.
the Winnipeg Ice left. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I knew there was one at one point. I knew the American. Obviously, I played in the building as an American League player. You know, back. Geez, I don't know how long that was again now, but it's a great time to watch college hockey. Like, it really is, and you know, the games are really available everywhere. More and more, I see TSN all over Canada picking up games that I'm doing with ESPN or ESPN Plus or whomever. So.
Well, I was just going to quickly say, you look at Max Celebrini, right? We mentioned him, Boston University. Owen Power, also Canadian. To your point, we're talking about the first overall pick. Well, I mean, Celebrini is supposed to be the first overall pick, but further to your point, right, Colby? Like, I mean, Canadians, there's a reason why Canadians are choosing to go the NCAA route, right?
You just get more time. It's less of a rushed process. And right now, I think there's this sort of premium on American-born goaltenders right now in the game of hockey. Okay, the pendulum has kind of swung in their favor. And we were talking to Andrew Raycroft about this, who's a Canadian guy. He's from, you know, he played in Wellington, Ontario, you know, and then he made his way through the ranks. And, you know, he actually now does a lot of college hockey. So this is a guy who really has seen both, came through one, but as sort of a, you know, an analyst now, he's seeing the other side of it. And like Connor Hellebuck, nobody rushed Connor Hellebuck. He didn't even come to NHL training camps because you legally can't. Right. And so you think about those extra years these goaltenders are getting, these defensemen. You look at the Hughes brothers, they all stayed that second year. They all came out as 20-year-olds. Like, what would have happened if Luke and Quinn Hughes at 19 were still playing in Major Junior? They probably would have had 150 points, and they probably would have got a lot of bad habits in their game, where staying at Michigan forces these guys to play against 24, sometimes 25-year-old guys, okay? And it forces you, you know, to keep a little bit of that discipline in your game. And again, I'm biased. I went the college route. I cover the game. I do the NCAA tournament. I call the national championship. So I get it. I have bias, but, you know, I'm just seeing general managers that feel more comfortable and less rush with their prospects by letting them go to college and letting them kind of, you know, bake in the NCAA route.
Well, and Colby, we have a perfect example of that here in Winnipeg, right? You have Chaz Lucius, the 2021 first rounder, who played the 1 year at Minnesota and then came and turned pro. And then, of course, you know, he's dealt with injuries. So that's an unfortunate situation for him. But I just want to ask you about Rutger a little bit, because you are right. He is already a fan favorite. He was here for the development camp this summer, and him and Colby Barlow, the 2023 first rounder, they became like stepbrothers. Like, it was actually hilarious watching them kind of take over and really become like charismatic and own this city very quickly. But for a guy like Rutger, do you see him staying longer at Michigan, or do you think this could, and obviously I'm not asking you to reveal anything if you know.
Yeah, no, I don't know the answer, but I'll tell you my opinion. No problem.
Yeah. And that's what I'm curious about, your opinion, just in terms of the benefits of, you know, because again, we've seen it with guys. Kyle Connor was a one and done. Jacob Trouba stayed the 2 years. And obviously there's always that concern, right? And especially like you said, now there's more so. It's like, well, if a guy stays a third year, is he going to stay a fourth? And right. That sort of thing. So in terms of Rutger, what do you see his sort of route being with turning pro?
Yeah, so I remember talking a lot with his father his freshman year, and I just kept saying, don't rush him. Don't rush him. I see some of these other kids at Michigan are in a rush. Don't buy it in, okay? You don't make your money on your first contract, Okay. Your money comes when on your second contract. The last thing you want to do is leave Michigan to go play in the American Hockey League when you have things left on the table at that level. Now, fast forward, obviously. Now I watch Rutger play at Michigan, and I think that's a guy who looks like he's ready to be a pro. So, I think he absolutely made the right decision to come back for his second year. Now I think it's going to be up to him. I really do. And obviously the team and his family. I know his family's super tight-knit. They make decisions together. They're always together. Both of his parents, his sister, they're such a great supportive cast for him. But I look at his game and I do believe he's ready to take the next step. I really do. He's not a guy who worries me because let's just say he does take the step and he starts, in the American Hockey League next year. That kid is going to will his way through that American League roster, will his way through that American League depth chart. Like, he's not a guy that I worry about having to go deal with the bus rides and play the 3-and-3s. And I know that stuff is a little outdated in the American League. I know the 3-and-3s aren't happening as much anymore.
Still do them.
They do, but not every weekend like we did.
Yeah.
I mean, we did one every single weekend other than we flew up to either Newfoundland or Winnipeg to play 2 games in one of those cities.
Mhm.
But he looks to me like a guy who's ready to go. But he also, guys, is a guy who feels like an unfinished business type of guy. And if he feels that his team underachieves this year or potentially is going to be the captain at Michigan next season, which I could very well see happening, which is an incredible honor and hard thing to do at college hockey, to have an underclassman in a sport that has older teams. He could be a 20-year-old captain with 25-year-old seniors, right? Role types of players. So he may be a guy who says, I want to be captain and I want to win at Michigan. And let me tell you, that is the farthest thing from a red flag. Okay. That is a breath of fresh air, a guy who wants to win. He's not worried about his own stats. And that's what you get with him. Like, he's never going to care about his stats, this kid. He's going to care about team winning. You look at the World Juniors, you look what he went through. He was not healthy, especially, the early parts of the tournament. He lays that hit in that gold medal game, which to me just changed the entire tone of that hockey game, brought such a level of confidence to his team. Like, who are these punks? They got nothing on us. And again, that's just who he is as a player. So is he ready? Yeah, I think he's ready, guys. Dave, I think he could potentially challenge for an NHL roster spot next year, but is it going to hurt him to play a third year? No. If he does go back for that third year, do you worry about him being a senior? Probably not, because at the end of the day, you're seeing what Cutter Gauthier did. I think other players could do the same thing if they truly wanted to. But to me, he's the type of kid who's ready. He's a pro. He plays like a pro when you watch him, sort of with his attitude and his skill set on the ice.
Well, Colby, I'll tell you this. If he ends up in the American Hockey League with the Moose, I'll be excited because I cover them extensively. So that'll be a little fun guy to cover next year. No question about it.
Last question I have for you, Colby, is about, you mentioned you played for Rutger's dad, Jim, with the Lincoln Stars of the USHL. What was, as a coach, what was Jim's focus and, and sort of entity that you think was translated down to Rutger?
Well, details, and all the qualities that I kind of went through earlier when I was talking, and I know I was kind of saying it with a little bit of humor, but I truly meant it, that I'll punch you in the face on my way to scoring a goal. And I think Jim, Jimmy deserves a lot of credit because this kid is an old school hockey player. I think he's the type of player we all kind of crave, right? He's that power forward who, takes no prisoners, who, goes and stands in front of the net and will take an absolute, shit kicking while trying to score a goal. He's the player that, drags teams into the fight on a game where they're not ready to play or they're not, there with their A game. And I think a lot of that comes from Jimmy. He was the assistant coach in Lincoln when I was there. And I remember, the following year he became the head coach, or maybe, I believe it was the following year Jimmy became the head coach. And I remember my friend Jimmy Hayes, who we all know, it's a terribly tragic thing that happened to Jimmy, but Jimmy was playing at the U.S. national team, but he was too young to go to college hockey. He still needed another year of high school, and he didn't know where he should go. And I remember getting on the phone with Jimmy and selling Jim McGroarty. And I know we're talking about two guys with the name of Jim now, but I sold Jimmy Hayes on Jim McGroarty, on what kind of guy he was, what kind of coach he was. He was going to teach you how to play tough. He was going to hold you accountable. But he also, guys, he wasn't an asshole. He wasn't a prick. He was the type of player's coach that you respected and that you made the right plays for, because you didn't want to have to go look him in the eye if you made a hot dog type of decision or a hot dog type of play, because he treated you, even at a young age, with such respect. And I think a lot of that is worn off on Rutger. And when you ask Jimmy about it, he gives his wife all the credit and says he had nothing to do with it. It was all his wife, Cindy. But at the end of the day, like, he just has all the qualities that a captain should have. I watch the way Adam Lowry plays, and I know Rutger, has a lot more skill than Adam Lowry, but there's a lot of similarities, the way he kind of goes around and he patrols the ice and he looks after his teammates, and he, is the guy who stands up on the bench, and and he knows when to get into the refs, and he knows when to challenge, back on certain things. So I think some of those qualities, Drew, are what sets him apart and what makes him a natural leader. And look, I think we're going to get to see that as Michigan. I believe they're 12th in the pairwise rankings right now, but they're going to have to win some games to make sure that, they've got to buy into the tournament, and they don't need their conference tournament to get in. And then from there, it's going to fall on, Rutger and some of those other players. But, Rutger drags guys like Frank Nazar, who's another first-round pick. He drags him into the game, right? Seamus Casey and some of the other big names. And he kind of, stirs up that drink. So I think a lot of those are why we always love a coach's kid. There's always a thing about a coach's kid. Look at Adam Lowry. He's a coach's kid, right? There's a certain type of guy that's a coach's kid. We've seen it time and time again. And I think Rutger, hits the nail on all those things.
Thanks, you, Colby. We'll do it again real soon. There he goes, Colby Cohen, joining us this morning. Morning Cuppa Hockey on the Daily Faceoff.com and the YouTube channel.